Hey guys, just a quick video to post this week, just to kind of go over a control panel build that's going to be happening. I think I've finally got all of the components that I need to get it started. But yeah, so let's just show you what I've got. Right, so what I'm going to be using as the actual case for my control panel is this old base unit for a PC. Now, one of the things that so I've already gutted the actual base unit, so it's all empty inside. One of the things I am still trying to have a little bit of a think about is exactly where my outputs are going to be. So originally I was looking at, obviously there's quite a few gaps on either ends, which I was going to try and use the existing holes and kind of fill them up with my power connectors, 32 amp 3-pin connectors, but it's a case of, say for example, if we just kind of place one, you can fit two in this hole here without any issue, but it's a case of they don't actually connect to anything, so it's a case of I have to kind of rig up something for them to screw into if I use the sides already with the holes in. Other options that I've got is potentially using the top or the bottom, which obviously are solid, and having my outputs there. Obviously more than likely they'll be at the bottom rather than the top, but yeah, so that's the first thing I've got to work out what I'm going to be doing. On this side there's a little bit more material to work with. I can potentially you know, find a few places that I could stick these. I think again should be able to get two in here, be a bit of a tight fit, maybe have to grind some bits off, but yeah, so I've got to work out where I'm going to be putting those. The reason why I'm using a base unit is because I've been looking for some form of casing of similar size, and well, it's really difficult to get. I don't know why, and you know, and if people in the UK have a better casing suggestion, you know, let me know, because as I say, might not be for another week or so before I start actually on this build. But yeah, so this is what I'm playing with it at the moment. So got my 32 amp 3-pin connectors. Also I'll have a, this is going to be what the, so the mains are going to be wired into this, so it's another 32 amp connector with some safety switch that will only turn on if it's actually got a plug in there. I think the key point that I want to do is be able to actually disconnect all electrical wires when it's not in use. That way, you know, it's a little bit safer maybe. Just to note, I am not a electrical engineer in any way, shape or form, so do not use my word as any sort of guide to go by. I'm learning as I go along. So next up, so obviously got my power, but what's going to be controlling my temperatures are these Inkbird PID temperature controllers. These are the ITC 106. I've got 3 of these, which will be, I think, quite nice, going across the top there. Each of the PIDs will be powered by, or have an on-off switch independent of each other, as well as, let's try and find this. So obviously the PIDs that are wired up to the elements via a SSR, I'm planning on each having a little LED light indicating that when the element is on, and there is going to be another LED light indicating for when the whole unit has power going towards it. Something else that I'm going to be doing in this build is using a 3-point switch to define power between the HLT and the boil kettle. That way I'm minimising the amount of ampage that I'm using at one time. So it's a case of the elements that I'm using at the moment are, I think, 2.2 kilowatts, and based off of my mains running at 240 volts, I think that works out as 10 amps usage per element. So obviously if I'm running a 32 amp capability system, then I shouldn't have any problems there. So I've also got here, actually, and this is one of the things that I will throw out to you guys actually, is so I'll show you the thermal wells that I'm using. So I'm using these short, I think it's about 2-inch thermal wells that I'm planning on either putting directly into my boil kettle and HLT, or I might actually have it running off of the what's it called, let's go over there quickly. I'm thinking about maybe sticking in a T-junction before my ball valve, having this kind of just sitting there, and then that way I can have my heat sensor kind of just sitting there rather than having to put another hole into my kettles. Hopefully that might work. Something that I have noticed that is slightly irritating though, so these sensors have this kind of little screw attached, and that actually, and we'll see how easy I can do this with one hand. So that screw, that nut actually stops the sensor from going down the well. So if so let's do that like that. So if you see, it don't fit. So one of the things that I am thinking of doing is actually just grinding off the edges of this this nut or screw. It's not a nut. It's not really a screw because you're not screw. No, maybe it's a screw. Yeah, thinking about grinding off the edges and then fitting it in there. Maybe it should work. We'll see. So just aware that obviously this is 8 minutes already and I've talked a load of bollocks. A couple other fun bits I'm going to be having on my unit is come on, where's some of the quirky bits. So I thought I would get a key power switch, just because I think it's kind of fun. It's not overly important. I don't think anyway. I've got quite a few. I've also got myself a emergency stop button that I'll have to wire in. Again, don't really think it's majorly necessary, but it's a bit of fun. I think I mentioned that. So obviously it's a 32 amp system, but the elements are only going to be taking about 10 amps each. That's why I'm using the Inkbird SSR 25 amps, which are more than enough. Even if I wanted to stick in another element into each kettle, because I'm only using one at a time. at 10 amps a pop. That will still have 5 amps leeway. Anything else? No, I've got a couple of other relays indoors, which will actually it's a couple of I think, was it DPCO relays, which I think are the same as DPDT relays, effectively using a coil to send power to the other parts of the relay, allowing for the switches to actually turn on and not having effectively all of the ampage running through these switches, which can only take 3 amps. Obviously if you try to put more than that through them, they'll burn up. Anyway, so this is just a brief video kind of saying one of the things that I'm going to be working on in the coming weeks. As I say, if anyone has any better suggestions for my casing, let me know. Always appreciate advice. Yeah, I'll probably be doing another couple of videos similar to this with my changes to the brewery and bits and pieces. I've got a video planned in my head around my mash tun, just to kind of talk you guys through what my current setup is. As I say, guys, droning on now, so I'll catch you later, and you guys take it easy.